Good morning, adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. I'm waking up this morning and it is very overcast. My campsite is very nice though. It's chilly, it feels good. But with that said, it looks like it could rain at any minute, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to get into today. I think what I'm going to start off by doing is checking the weather and see kind of where we're at. And then from there, I guess I'll proceed accordingly. I do need to check the forecast for rain, wind, and possible tornadoes after the other night, just to make sure I'm good. And then I guess I'll kind of move around and get dressed and figure out where I want to go today. I'm not sure if it's going to be more of a low-key day or if I'm going to get into something fun. If it's raining, it's probably going to be a bit more low-key. But if it's not, I have a lot of ideas. I was really hoping that this weekend it wouldn't be rainy because I have something kind of special that I want to film. However, I also understand if it does get rainy, there's nothing I can do about it, and they definitely need rain here. Every place I've been traveling has been under a burn ban, and, well, you guessed it, that's not good. But before I go and take care of all that, it's just so nice to see all of these leaves at my campsite. Okay, I got back into the van because I need to put away my blankets and I need to change and things. I just looked at the weather. The weather is not looking promising. It's 80% chance of rain tomorrow and also the following day. Now, this particular activity, I only have today, tomorrow, and the following day to achieve. So, if there's 80% chance of rain, I think I'm going to have to just go on and go out there today so that I can try to avoid the rain. And that means that the things that I was contemplating doing today, I'm going to push possibly until my next trip. The reason why is because they're also somewhat outside. So I think today is going to be a day of trying to work with the weather. I'm also probably not going to get a ton of solar as a result of that, so anything that I get to charge my batteries will have to come off the alternator today. That's okay. 2 of my power stations are in super good shape. Now, something I noticed yesterday while I was cooking as kind of a follow-up is that the Blue Eddy doesn't seem to handle the Instapot the same way that the All Power that I tested it with does. It seems to pull a little bit more on that one and tax it a little bit more. And so as a result of that, I probably wouldn't use the Blue Eddy for the Instapot. It's not that it can't do it, because it totally can, but it seems to pull the power more so than it did with the All Power. It also pulls the power more than with the Jackery. The Jackery V2 is still hands down one of my favorite for cooking devices. The more that I use it, the more that I'm seeing this over and over again. So just wanted to kind of give you guys that heads up. It works just fine, but for that particular situation, I don't know that it's necessarily the best. Also, one of the things that I really have kind of been enjoying is the fact that I have the set power. The set power is great because I can put things in it after I cook. And the set power has a refrigerator and a freezer. And because of that, I'm able to keep the ingredients for the food frozen up until I'm ready to use them. But then I can also take the leftovers and put them in and freeze them again. And so that way I'm not having to worry about food being wasted. Now before, when I would just carry a refrigerator, I would be able to have leftovers, but sometimes those leftovers would have to be eaten pretty quickly. With this, I can refreeze things and then I don't have to eat them immediately. I can eat them like in a couple days, or I can eat them in like a week, and they don't go bad. And that is so nice. So am I loving the set power? Yes. Is it really handy? Absolutely. Do I like the dual zone? Yes. Do I recommend a dual zone refrigerator freezer if you would like to have more options? Oh yeah, this one is a great size for my tiny van, and because of that, I have just thoroughly been enjoying it. Not only have I been able to cook and then bring things with me, but then also when I'm cooking, I can put things in there, and it works so well that I haven't really had to do too much when it comes to like buying new things on the road, because I was able to fully stock it up before I left out. And the things that I have been buying are all things that are just like going into the regular refrigerator for like passive eating instead of having to cook so much. And after a full day of activities, sometimes the last thing you want to do is have to pull out your gas stove or your air fryer or your Instapot. All you want to do is be able to just take something and heat it up. And that is where the Road Pro and the Hot Logic have been coming in. So I can use the Set Power in combination with any of my cooking to make it just better. And I love that. Not to mention, it is super user friendly. I'm able to change the temperatures so I can have refrigerator, freezer, or refrigerator and freezer. And I can change each zone. So if I wanted to have more freezer items, I could, and less refrigerator items. So that's been super nice. Oh, I need to put my blankets together because what is this? I can't even find the ends. I'm struggle busing so hard right now. This morning has just kind of thrown me off with the rain. So I just need to get my life together, maybe. Give me a minute. Oh, I figured it out finally. I figured it out. Every day is a new adventure with this blanket roll situation. Depending on if I start out right or wrong, it could take me 3 seconds. It could take me 5 minutes like it just did. I think sometimes it has to do with the level of coherency I have in the morning also though. But this does keep it out of my way, so that if I don't end up needing it, it's not all up in the space. Every little weird thing counts. Is this going to be for everybody? No, probably not. Some people are just going to have their bed made out all the time. I used to have that, and it was really convenient. I'd just pull the sheets back, tighten them up, and I was ready to go. But over time, I changed my setup, and in doing so, I allowed myself a lot more actual physical space in the van. But at the same time, it gave me a few more tasks, like rolling my blanket. Is it a pain some mornings whenever I can't find the ends and get them to go together? Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, is it worth it to have the extra space? Yes. In my previous setup, for those of you who haven't been here for that long, my bed was a static bed, and it sat at about this high right here. So I could not use any of this floor space because my bed went from the back seat all the way to the back of my van in one solid plank. Now, that was pretty nice because if I was having a long day, I could just get into the back and then I could immediately lay down. That was super cool. However, whenever I got into an accident and I could no longer access the underbed storage through the back, I had to make a change because I wasn't opening my doors anymore. And I really stressed out about that because I had a pop-out table where I could cook outside and everything, and it was just super convenient. However, it makes you think about things when you're in a moving vehicle and then suddenly you can't use part of that vehicle. And so moving to this trifold bed was a really good thing when it came to freeing up this space. So now I can cook inside the van. That wasn't ever an option really before unless I was just boiling water, and I could do that in my little tiny floor space over by my batteries. But now I can sit here and I can lean up against my door. I can put pillows behind me. I can have my legs fully extended. I am 5'7.5", and now I have lots of ways that I can sit. You can see that my legs are fully extended just outright, and I have probably about a foot of space over there. Now, overall, the dimensions of the NV200 are kind of interesting. See, the NV200 is kind of a square, which is what makes it so appealing to me personally. It is 48 by 48. It's kind of a box. Now, if you go over the wheel wells, it goes out to 54. However, the wheel wells aren't really an effective use of space in most vans. With mine, my shelf actually kind of goes over the wheel well, so it eats into that space just a little bit. And on this side, as you can see, I just have jackets. So I consider my van 48 by 48. And in doing so, it makes it long enough where I can put lengthwise a full-length bed. However, I could also put a full-size bed in the back if I didn't have my shelf. Not only can I carry 3 very large batteries with me in this space and not feel like I'm just surrounded by them, but I can also, whenever I put away my linens correctly, and I have everything in stow and go mode or in couch mode, I can free up all of this space also. Don't mind that. I need to put these pants in my dirty laundry. There's room here so that someone can sit on the floor and someone could sit on the couch. There's also room in my van where I could have myself sitting up on the couch, and I can have a table down here so I can set up and cook while sitting on the couch. Or I can sit in the floor and set a table up and be able to cook as well. And so all of this modification, even though it was kind of a learning curve and it was kind of a pain, it has well been worth it. And I am so happy that I was able to kind of roll with it. I think van life has taught me that on days like today where it's going to be rainy, or on days whenever you have something tragic happen that you have to change your van, it can be something that's a little hard to swallow, but if you're willing to go with it, you can come up with something even better. And especially with a no build. That's why I've always encouraged people to do a no build van build, where you can just use the things that you already have and create a nice space for yourself. I understand a fully built out rig is really nice. And if you know for a fact that is what you're going to want and that is going to be what you want to keep, there's nothing wrong with that. But sadly, I don't know how many of my friends I've talked to that have fully built out rigs who are in the third or fourth iteration of having to rip something out and modify it because they've changed their needs somewhere along the way. So, do I encourage you to go out and buy a rig and immediately start building? Absolutely not. Never, never. Do I encourage you to start out in the space and just put a cot in, figure out where everything goes, figure out what you need? Yes. And if you're interested in how I actually started out in the van, you can go check out my very first van tour. It is just my no build van build, and you can see how far we have come to get to the couch that folds out, the storage of hanging, and also the shelf. Because when I started out, it looked very, very different. And if I change things now, it's with intention and it's not that hard, versus someone who's built something and then has to rip that out just to make changes, which is why I have still remained with the no build. It just works better for me. Okay, I'm just letting a little bit of the fresh air in, and it's really nice. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and fill up my water for the day, because that's just an easy task that I can accomplish, because every morning I start off with some water. Now, something I've learned with my water every day is that when I fill it up, sometimes I'm more asleep than other times. And by doing that, I have spilled water numerous times. So I started doing something a little bit different. And this is a tip that I would suggest for every person who has a van, period. Get yourself an entry mat. My entry mat is great because not only can I park my shoes on there if my shoes are dirty, messy, or wet, but also I can fill up my water. And if I'm cooking and I'm not using my table, I can cook on this mat. And what it does is it just keeps things from getting messy. See that water right there? That's because I just overfilled the bottle, and you can see it's dripping just a little bit. So the mat is catching it as opposed to my carpet. And in the moment of my mat catching this, this means that it is not tracking in stuff to my nicer floor. Now, every so often, I'm going to end up with like a little leaf or a hair or something that gets off of the mat, but that's easy to clean up. But fluids, liquids, that's not so easy. So what I like to do is I leave my water bottle on there for a minute, let it finish doing what it does, because sometimes you just overflow things. And then I'm going to get a baby wipe and set it down on that, and it'll absorb up all of the extra moisture so that moisture does not migrate onto my carpet. Now, you might be thinking, just don't spill. Sometimes that's easier said than done. I've had water jugs that have been filled to the tip top that have like this little air bubble in the handle, and whenever you first use it, it goes pop and then it just flows out. It just happens sometimes, especially if you've been going through lots of different pressure. I've also had it where, in this particular case today, I just overfilled the line just a little bit, so when I put the lid in, it just kind of pushed it out. So there's lots of options for spilling. In addition, if I'm drinking other things other than water, if they're like colored liquids or something like that, I still don't want them to be everywhere in the van. So this just helps me to keep that from happening. And in addition, what I always do is I take this moment to, while it's over the mat, wipe down the bottle so that whenever I put it into my cup holder, it doesn't then get moisture in the cup holder where it just sits there. So that is super, super handy. I also make sure everything is tightened down, and then I wipe the bottom as the last thing. It's just a little rule of thumb. But by doing this, not only with the water, but with the mat itself, for the shoes, I have kept so much garbage out of my van, and then I can just take this mat out and I can shake it out, or I can use a nice dust brush on it outside to get everything off of it. And in worst case scenarios, I can also hose it down just a little bit if it gets gross. And that is way better than thinking about that on my carpet. Now, a lot of people would just say, well, why do you have carpet? Well, because the underlining of my particular van is this rubberized mat. And for a while, I tried to rock with it just being the rubberized mat, but I noticed that it has an ever so slight texture to it. And in doing so, things would just get in there every day. And so I tried to do a couple of other things. I tried to do a foam floor to give me some relief on the knees whenever I would get in, because I lean into the van. And ultimately with moisture, those just swelled up and were just not a good solution. I have tried to do little tiny carpets. Still, they get gross. And with me being a person who doesn't want to have to go and do laundry every other day, that's not on my wheelhouse of things to do. There's a lot of people who that is part of their routine. They want to be able to go to town every other day. They want to be able to do their laundry every other day. They feel like they need to do the things in their van mostly. My adventures are not about me being in the van as much as they are me being outside of the van. I am just living here, so I take care of the space that I live in, and I make sure that I do what I can to not have messes. I am very preventative maintenance versus after the fact. And so stuff like the mat, game changer. Again, I've tried numerous things. This thing, the cheapest thing, under $10, saved me so much headache and also so much money doing laundry. See, again, it's just super simple. I have this down, it's picking up all that water. I can go into those little crevices and just kind of push it down and make sure it gets all of the loose stuff out. And then after that, I can just throw this guy away, no problem. And then again, you can see where it's caught the leaves, all of the little things from outside from the bottoms of my shoes. And so I just kind of park my shoes here in the night. And then also, whenever I'm away from the van, sometimes I'll park a pair of shoes in, you guessed it, a shower cap, because that prevents even more so from things getting in and out of the van. I mostly do the shower caps for my larger shoes like my Hokas and my boots, but they definitely help because no matter how much that you scrape your shoes outside to clean them, you're always going to have some residual stuff. And that's why the mat is so important. Other things that I've noticed that are super, super helpful for keeping my van super clean are the little tiny things that I do in the morning. Now, trying to put my blankets together and everything might seem like an extra step or a pain. And sometimes it can be, like this morning when I was just struggle bussing. But what I do every single morning after I do this is I make sure everything is in its place so I don't have rattling sounds while I'm going down the road. There's nothing worse than going down the road and hearing those sounds, because ultimately, if you have everything in a place and there is a place for everything, you should not hear a ton of movement in the back. And so I have designed my van for that. So if I do happen to hear a sound in the back, that means that something is wrong and I need to go and fix the issue. And so because of that, I have learned very quickly that having order in my van that works for me also works for me being able to tell if something has gone wrong, like while I'm driving. And I hope that makes sense. With that said, it just started raining, like a lot. Okay, today's about to get interesting. That might change the plans again, but for now, I'm gonna close up the van so I don't get a lot of water inside. Even though, because of the mat and because of this little entry seal, it keeps most of it out, I'm just gonna do my part to make sure more of it stays out. That changes a lot. So I don't know what I'm going to do today, because the thing I was going to do was outside. And then the thing I was going to do, because it might rain tomorrow, was also outside. So, I might have to just find something to do inside today. I don't really need to do a van organization day or anything like that. Normally, if I have a day where I just spend it in the van, it's spent just relaxing. And I take that as like a 0 day for me. I don't really have a lot of projects that have to constantly be done inside. Occasionally I'll add something in the van that I have to figure out where to go with it, or I might have like a self-care day or something, and I consider that a project day too, because that's a project for me. But for the most part, if I'm in the van, it's because I want to be in the van, not because I have stuff to do in the van. So I don't have things that I need to do, and I'm not really tired enough to need a 0 day. So maybe I find an activity, or I guess I could go have a Starbucks day so that I could actually work a little bit. That might work. Work-life balance is important. But when you film outside, sometimes the rain mocks you. It sounds like it's slowing down a little bit. So I'll be monitoring this, but I'm going to go ahead and get dressed, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Is it going to get better? I just don't know.